Hello everyone, welcome to our third session of bringing digital learning into the history classroom. Today we have a wonderful session on conducting digital research projects with Debbie Froggatt, the Director of Library Services, who will be joining us today.
Hi everybody.
We are on one screen, so it should be fun. And if you have any questions, we'll have the classroom open as usual and we will work through that. Let me quickly just show you the agenda for the day and we'll get started. We're going to do just a quick welcome, remind you why we're here. Our agenda for today, we're going to talk about evaluating sources. We're going to be talking about planning for resource-based learning, take some time to explore research databases, and then I'll take you through and introduce the Google Classroom activities, and then you'll have independent time with Debbie walking us through and really educating us on how to conduct digital research projects. And the other part of our time is giving you the opportunity to explore and to try it out. That's one of the challenges that we really want to get you comfortable with in digital learning, is being comfortable to take the risk, go and explore. We'll introduce some new Google activities in the process, and hopefully you have a great evening. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead into the Google Classroom, and I will be there walking you through while Debbie brings you through the presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Debbie, who is going to bring us through our slides.
So good night, everybody. Tonight's presentation connects the use of primary sources and connecting primary sources with what in the library world we call resource-based learning. In this case, you're taking digitized images and things from the internet, and we are going to take a look at online databases. You're going to be using a range of resources to create new learning for students and create new understandings. You can see in front of you that there is a definition of information literacy, and to be able to identify, locate, evaluate, and use the information for the issue or problem at hand. And again, using resource-based learning allows students to become information literate. And you can see the bullet points there on the left provide what an information literate student should be, or what kinds of skills he or she should have to be college and career ready. You know, accessing information efficiently, evaluating it. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes. Using all types of information accurately from, again, as we mentioned, starting with those primary sources, but then we need maybe some background information, and then maybe targeted magazine or periodical articles about a specific event, and so on. The other thing is that's really important is practicing ethical behavior. Everything from citing sources to sharing online content ethically and in a socially well-behaved manner. And then finally, just appreciating literature and generating new knowledge. When we think about a digital learner is what I would call informationally served and literate in using media. One who can access, who has full access to, one who is responsible for their use, and then one who creates and shares new learning with digital sources. So this is taking that information literacy model and sort of moving it into a digital learning arena, if you will. So when we think about evaluating, finding information online, it's really important to teach the students how to be critical users. So I want you to pretend that you are in 7th grade and I am your librarian or your teacher, you're the teacher, but you as a 7th grader have to pretend you're the teacher, and you have to pretend that you are teaching 2nd graders. And you are pretending that your 2nd graders are studying endangered species. So with these 7th graders, I've done this with 6th graders, 7th graders, 9th graders. I do the same exercise. And I say to them, as teachers of 2nd graders, why would you never use this website? We're going to go to the website in a second. And I say to them, when you get to the website, don't raise your hand right away, but take a look and be very critical about why you wouldn't use it. And so the lights go down and I click the link, and here comes the web page. You can see that this site is pretty hilarious. And if you scroll down, you can see that there's a map that goes along with this endangered animal. And there's hypertext that links to coniferous and Olympic rainforests and so on. And it's really fun to watch your students, let the light bulbs, if your students go off, all of a sudden they realize, wait a minute, octopuses don't live in trees. But would this fool a second grader? And most 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th graders would say, indeed, it would. And so one of the worst things that a teacher can do is say, go find some research on octopuses, because your students very well may find that. So it's always good unless you're practicing analyzing websites or using keyword searching on the internet, to really have a set of websites ready for your students to use. So this is one example of just evaluating web pages. The other thing that goes along with this is that if you notice up at the top, URL has a .net in it, and I'm going to flip to the next slide, and
sorry guys, our slide got slightly out of order.
And when we get to this next slide, you will see that there's a photograph of Dr. Martin Luther King, and you can see that it says martinlutherking.org on the gray slide that's on this Google Doc slide. And this is another component of URL analysis. This actual web page, martinlutherking.org, is blocked by BPS because it's hosted by Stormfront, which is a hate site. And when you scroll down on Stormfront's on this site, and you go to Stormfront, and you scroll down on Stormfront's website to the About This site, it takes you to the Ku Klux Klan. And so even if a URL says .org, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a site that you want to use. You really want to think about strong URL analysis. And I would use this, I use this with 8th and 9th graders. And I've seen college students do this. Oh, there must be an organization about Dr. Martin Luther King. I'll just do martinlutherking.org and see what comes up. And in this case, this site comes up. And the way this site is constructed, this could very well fool an 8th grade student. So it's really critical to think about evaluating web pages. So we just thought for fun, the Tree Octopus site, and there are many more, are at this Museum of Hoaxes, and the URL is down at the bottom. And you can take a look and maybe think about which ones of these might fool which age groups. As you're looking, I can just add, there used to be one, I don't know if it's still there, about cloning that looks really weird and are really real. And you can actually pick your baby, and your baby can actually even look like Michael Jackson if you want. Go ahead and browse through Martin, or the Hoaxes site, just to take a look at some of the funny hoax sites that people have put together.
And you'll also see part of your second assignment is to go back to the Tree Octopus website after you browse through the hoaxes. And you're actually going to take some time and think about one reason you would not use this website with a younger student, and an element of the website that could be confusing to a student. Now remember, when using Padlet, you want to make sure that you double click, and that allows you to post. You can either write, or you can insert an image. If you want to take a screenshot, you can insert a screenshot, just drag and drop it. Either way is fine as you're exploring and thinking about what it means to evaluate sources and what elements are going to be confusing, kind of trip up your students.
Okay, so now that you've had a chance to enjoy those hoax websites and analyze and see which ones might fool what age group of students, here's a trick to help your students consider website evaluation. It's cards, and it's pretty easy to remember. And we think of credibility. What are the creators or the sponsors' credentials? Who is hosting this site? Why is it there? Are elements of the site accurate? Can you go and find similar statistics on another site, for instance? Is the site reliable and relevant? Is it going to work for your students? What is the date of the site? I mean, of course, if you're doing scientific research, you want to make sure that the site is timely and the students aren't using dated research. And then what is the source and scope? And that relates to Again, who created the source and why is it there? And is this enough information? So to analyze sites in that fashion using this cards process is one way to help to ensure that websites are credible. One of the things I try to impress upon students is if it's a .edu site, it can be a university site, but even then we have to be careful that it's people who are scholars in the work and not college students posting things on professors' pages and stuff. So again, that goes with credibility and accuracy, to be really critical about what you're using. So you do have a document in your packet or
in your Google Classroom.
In your Google Classroom that's entitled Library Research Planner. And this is one way to think about planning a resource-based lesson or doing some research using all digital tools and digital resources. And I like to practice Grant Wiggins's backwards design. And I use this, as you can see, at VA Fenway Library when I work there. And you can see the top part of the logistics. But it's really important to consider what your learning outcomes are, and then what digital literacy skills or information literacy skills are you going to embed in this unit. And it could be anything from embedding that Padlet response to doing keyword search planning, which we will talk about in a minute. But so you have content outcomes, and then you also have digital learning information literacy skills that you might want to consider. So that's one component. But the other thing is to really think about an essential question. So you first know where you're sort of headed and what you want the students to walk away with. But then it's really powerful to consider it an essential question. And I'm going to read this question again. We're going to use this question, but an example of an essential question that we're going to work with tonight is, you are writing an article about the impact of the March on Washington 10 years after that event. Why was the march a significant turning point in the civil rights movement? So here's an essential question that we know that the content outcome has something to do with the civil rights. It allows flexibility so students can go off in different directions and use the different interest points, but they're all doing the same work and they're embedding the same information and digital literacy skills. So I really like to work with essential questions when I work with teachers. And then the process is really what's the lesson plan. When I'm working with teachers, I like to have a process. But also I want to know how are the teachers going to assess the students? How are you going to assess the students? Do they need to capture digital images in order to put them in some kind of presentation? Or are they going to be using digital images to write a response paper? Or are they going to be using digital images to use it as fodder for a debate? You know, think about how you're going to be using these resources. What are the outcomes and products? And then finally, I just really like to just know what teachers need, and this includes print sources as well. So this digital planner is something that is just a good format to think about a process for when you're planning digital learning, digital research. So here we move on to this image that you saw at the JFK Library, and there's our essential question about the impact of the March on Washington and why was the march significant. And if we go to the JFK Library site, I think there are a couple more pictures, if I recall, that you had the opportunity to take a look at. And these are great starting points. And so when we're doing, particularly when if let's say you're asking the students to do this kind of analysis, this is a great starting point, but the students really need to do background information. And you certainly can send them out online and see what they can find, but if you would like to, now this is where the databases are really wonderful, because the students are inside published, digitized material that's been edited and checked. And so we can use these images as a discussion point. Where would you like to answer? How would you like to answer this question? And then move on from there. So what I'd like to do for our next slide is do a brief discussion of the databases, and then we'll go in and do a quick search, and then you can use the databases for another component of this assignment this afternoon. So the next slide is I just want to kind of give you a brief overview. You can see there's a definition of database. And again, I apologize for reading, but I think it's kind of important to just think about what it is. It's a research aid or tool that catalogs articles. So it gathers and lists articles from a large number of journals or magazines, and they're usually subscription-based. And now, even really wonderful reference books published by reputable groups as Gale and ABC Clio, publishers that in the social studies world you very well may be familiar with. And the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners offers these databases to residents of the Commonwealth, but you have to access them through a library portal. So on the right-hand side, you can see there is a screenshot of the Boston Public Schools Library Media Services page, and the URL's down at the bottom there, which we will go to in a minute. But you can see that on the home page, there are elementary, middle, and high school resources, as well as professional resources. There's also, along the menu, other kinds of professional things you can take a look at as well if you want to just explore the page. I like to describe these databases to the students as what I call the invisible web. You can't go out and surf and find them because they are subscription-based. We will be going to a database called History and Context, and if we had to pay for that database 24/7 for one school, in 2016 prices, I'm guessing that it would be probably about $5,000. When I first started using databases in 1998, they came on CD-ROMs, and it was a $3,000 a year subscription then. And you waited with bated breath every month for the new CD that came because it was cumulative. But we now have access 24/7 through the web page. So let's go and take a look. So here we are, and I'm going to just do the middle school resources, but you can take some time in a minute to look at any level that you'd like. But let's click the middle school resource. And one of the things I want to show you is there are buttons to numerous databases. And the first 5 are the Encyclopedia Britannica, which the Commonwealth, the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, bargains with Britannica to have this access. And I just want you to note that the second link down is the Encyclopedia Britannica in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking students. It's really very cool. And all of these databases, Britannica and the rest, also have a translation tool in them so that students that speak other languages can capture what's in these articles. But I'm going to scroll down a little more, and then we get into these Gale products. And the first 3 are encyclopedic in a way, and then I'm going to scroll to the next set, and you can see these are these in-context databases. Opposing viewpoints would be a good one for this assignment. I'm going to go to U.S. History and Context. You can see there's a science database. But before we go back to U.S. History and Context, you can see there's global issues. This biography and context is wonderful. They all work the same way. The function I'm going to show you, the functions I'm going to show you in U.S. History and Context work in these others. You can see there's books and authors, there's health and wellness. And then we move out of the Gale products, and you can see there's access to the New York Times and the Boston Globe as well. So there's some more primary source material for you. But I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to click U.S. History and Context. And when you get to the main page, you can actually bring students here and let them explore. If you just want them to explore U.S. history, this might be a way to begin a unit or something, because as it loads, you will see that there are windows with very general headings, Native Americans, biography, Supreme Court, and so on. Then this is all well and good, but it would take you a long time to get down to the granular level in order for a student to answer that essential question. So I usually, when I teach my students, but it depends on what the purpose is for going to the site, but in this case, I usually try to have my students master this advanced search function. So this is up on the top right. And when you click that, you can see that there is a place for 3 windows. And one of the things that I want them always to remember is I want all of the 3 buttons on the right to say keyword, because we don't know the name of a document yet, and we don't know the name of the book or the magazine it's in yet. And to me, I've complained to Gail about this. I say, this is ridiculous. They should all be keyword, unless you really want to look at just Time magazine, and that sometimes is okay. But you want to just make sure you know that those are clicked if you're doing these keyword searches. The other thing you can do, if you really want to get, you can click full text documents, because sometimes it's just an abstract. Depending on the level of the kids, I don't get into this amount of detail, but I just want you to see that it's there. And if you were actually doing research for a grad course or something, you could even click peer reviewed, and then you would get articles of that nature. So let's think of our keywords. If I had you in front of me, I would ask you, what are they in that essential question? One is civil rights. And if we just click civil rights, let's just do that first search. We are going to get 1,900 articles in just reference books. And you can see that right there. And on the right, where it says everything, there's a menu. There are 1,500 articles and biographies and 227 primary source articles. So this is really too many. It was too general of a search. So we're going to go back and we're going to add to civil rights, March on Washington. And you will see that the menu on the right with the different types of sources that have been digitized, reference books, biographical resources. There's 4 primary source documents and some images. And the primary source documents are probably speeches that you can listen to. Then there's newspaper articles and so on. And as I scroll down the list of hits, you will see that the first 3 are 3 out of the 59 reference books articles. And then the next 3 are biographical, and the next 3 are primary sources. Let's just for now go back up to the first 3 reference articles. And you can see that the triangles are the reading level, and I have to apologize. I think, oh yeah, and actually a window popped up. The red triangle means it's advanced. Yellow triangle means it's intermediate. But I want you to note, here's an article called the Civil Rights Act, and it's in a pretty complex encyclopedia. It's the Encyclopedia of Race and Racism. And it's in this database called U.S. History and Context. And if we click that title, we get this full article. It's full text. It's, am I looking at it? It's probably 6 or 7 pages long. And you can see our keywords are highlighted, which is really nice because it's an extremely long article and you're looking for some detail, you can scroll through very quickly. You can listen to the article. There's a button for that. And then on the right are the tools. You can cite the article. You can email the article to yourself. You can download it and print it out.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the research databases and dive right into the activities found in the Google Classroom.